Hello, everybody.
Hi, hello, everybody. Today I'm with Strand and we're chatting from different countries. He's chatting from Norway and I'm chatting from South Africa. Say hello, Trond.
Hello, everybody. I already said that, but yeah.
Yes, and hello from South Africa. The weather is very hot.
Yes.
I guess it's been 40 degrees Celsius, but it's very hot.
Here it's been raining and it's been storm, but it's quiet today, quiet and dry.
Yes. Okay, today I would like us to talk about cultural differences.
Yes.
We've been together for about now many years. I can't even count. I don't know how many years we've been together, but yeah, maybe 6 years, I don't know. But one thing that is clear to everybody is that we come from different cultures.
Yes.
We've got different cultural backgrounds that I thought let's discuss them so as to understand them. For me, they are not a problem, but are the things that maybe we need to discuss and talk about them.
Yes, it still needs to be discussed, even if it can't be handled.
Yes, I'm a South African and I come from the countryside in South Africa, meaning from rural areas. You've been there.
Yes.
And that having visited your country, I also realized that we come from totally different backgrounds, which needed us to have this chat.
Exactly.
Yes, can we start maybe discussing the cultural differences in the family setting? What's your input in terms of families in South Africa and families in Europe or in Norway, if we can make comparison?
Well, apart from the fact that you have more siblings, I believe there's an idea that the Norwegian family is more compact in general. We operate with this more, slightly more narrow definition of what family is. It's usually the closest family. It will include uncles, aunts and nieces and nephews, but it usually means the close family. And Norwegians also tend to get fewer children than in many other countries. So it's we have a tendency to have nuclear families of about 5 to 6 people at most. My family is it is of 5 people. I have 2 brothers, no sisters, and we grew up with an idea that the family is your grandparents and occasionally your aunts, uncles, and cousins.
Yes, most of the time, and sometimes you've seen me with my siblings' children, my nieces and nephews.
Yes.
Which I sometimes take care of them. In fact, ever since you've known me, I've always been with them.
You say so?
Yeah, even if I'm on holidays, but they are under my care. Ever since they were young up until now. Some of them are teenagers now, and I've been with them even now. Do you see a similarity or a difference in how you take care of your siblings' children?
It's quite different actually. So before one thing, it's usually expected that the families, the mother and father, is perfectly capable of taking care of their own children without assistance from much of anyone. Of course, my older brother who has the biggest family. He moved out to. I live in Bergen. He moved out to the countryside. pretty early after he and his wife began having children. So they raised them themselves. Now there is a tradition for godfather child when it's baptized in the Church of Norway. And in the old days, I suppose that meant so. In the old days, I suppose that meant that you had the responsibility for raising a child, your godchild, if the parents couldn't. But nowadays, that kind of responsibility is merely formal, and
Yes.
they have other arrangements that will be set in motion to take care of the children if it should happen. We have a welfare state, so the government is expected to help in an emergency, in a crisis like that.
Yes.
Of course, there's difference also that you grew up with more of a family close. I did not. My nephews and nieces did not grow up with my family, with a larger family in the same house or in the same neighborhood. We live more separate.
Yes. Okay, thanks for that input. There's something also I'm interested to ask, which is you might have noticed when you were here again, you were in my home more than once, you noticed that we keep animals in the yard. We keep pigs, we keep cows, we keep goats, we keep tortoises, we keep dogs. We've got lots of animals.
Yes.
Because we are in a setting like a farm setting. How different is it from your lifestyle in Europe?
My ancestors gave up farming a long while ago. My grandfather was a teacher. My other grandfather was a merchant, and my great grandparents, well, they were at sea, some of them, which is also very common in Norway. So I cannot really remember that far at any time when my ancestors or let alone my grandparents actually had livestock at home. We are not self-sufficient. We are not self-sufficed, in our family with things like we don't raise animals for food anymore. That's so living in a small farm, to be a small farm like your family seems to be running. That was quite exotic and unusual for me. It's not something we have a tradition for doing in our family. It would be nice if we could be more self-sufficed. I don't know what's right word, self-sufficient sometimes, but that is not something we have to do. We have a tradition for, even if we do live in the countryside. Most people who live in the Norwegian countryside do not keep livestock at home. They live like people in suburbia or in cities.
Yes. What were the cultural shocks that you noticed or you observed when you were here? What were the cultural shocks for you?
Believe it or not, but it was mostly that you had to ask for potatoes, or you would only get meat with the meal. And that surprised me a great deal, and I think I get overdosed on sausages before I realized that you do have potatoes. My mother always
yes, and I
about the importance of eating potatoes or rice with your meal.
Yeah, and I remember in a normal situation you would have liked to have more potatoes, but I was not aware, and we were not aware that it's something that you would have liked to have more of it.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Okay. I would also like to ask you about, does it happen to you that in some families that you face what we as Africans face, which we call it black tax? By black tax, we mean if I'm the one who got successful first at home, I carry the responsibility of pulling my family out of poverty, of educating siblings, of empowering siblings before I even get into my life. And when you look back into it, you're like, I could have been far in life if I was not hit by the black tax, which happens in most African families. Do you guys have something like that where I'm not going to say the older one because I'm not old at home, I'm number 3, but where the successful one has to carry the burden of looking after the others?
I didn't even know the term. That's fascinating. I know that you have been helping out your family, but I didn't know there was a special term for it even.
It's called black tax. You can
Yes.
Google it.
Exactly. Fascinating. No, that's not something we do at home. We could help each other out, but for once, but we do not. We are not under any obligation to support less fortunate family members to that extent. People are expected to care for themselves, and my parents have saved up some money. They help us out when they can, but they always try. But when they do, they always try to be fair about it, regardless of how much each of one of us earn. So no, there's no real duty. There's no real duty to support your family members like that, unless they are your children.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's something you only do if you want to, or if it's because it's common decency, but it's not expected of you, really.
Yeah, there's a cultural difference that I protected you from because you were far away from me. You were in another country, where I said when we decided that we wanted to be engaged, you had to speak to my mother over the phone and write her a letter.
Yes.
How is it done in your culture? Because in my culture, it's done totally different, but I had to break the rules because it's done in a way where a man would send men. They would sit next to the kraal. They would discuss the issues of the man wanting the woman's hand in marriage, unlike how you've done it. How is it done in your culture? How different it is done from my way? Despite what I asked you to do, that talk to my mother on the phone, write her a letter, how is it done in a normal circumstance? Because again, it's a cultural difference that has occurred between us.
It most certainly is, and well, I suppose what you can expect in a situation like that, in a way, is just to go sit down and have a casual conversation with your prospective in-laws, and that's all. But it's not even that it's required, but it's common courtesy to just talk with your in-laws. But there is no sermon, no tradition. It's barely even arranged. It's not really arranged or anything. You just casually talk with your future in-laws about marriage.
Yes, one more question. Do you have dowry in the European culture? How does it go? After you have a casual talk with your future in-laws, what happens? Like in Africa, there will be negotiations, there will be dowry. How is it done in your culture?
We at school we learned a funny little folk song about a man, about a housewife who kept about a young beautiful woman who kept getting suitors to her doorstep. And in every verse, the mother would ask, how many dollars does he have? And if he didn't have, every time he didn't have enough dollars, and he was rejected. Until maybe finally, when you got a prospector in the 6th or 7th verse who had $700, then he would be accepted. So in the old days, we did have dowry arrangements. I believe we called it something else, but yeah. But that's a really long time ago, and it's kind of it's very archaic in Norwegian to Norwegian ears. It's
Yes.
it's a completely unknown thing today.
Yeah. And I don't know how much I explained to you how it is done in Africa, because I know we've talked a lot about this topic because you were going to be involved in it, coming to a different culture, liking a woman who's from different culture. But I wanted to know one thing, which is I don't know if I explained in the past, there was no price for it, but it was to build a relationship between two families. So it was not really to pay to buy a woman. You are not buying. There's no price for a human being. You cannot.
No.
There's no price. Even if you can pay the biggest price, there's no price for a human being. But it used to be a tradition for those two families to form relations, to form a union, to a rapport, the language you'd learn to understand, to form a rapport.
Yeah, yes.
And then let's proceed on this one and talk about the weddings, because again, it is the topic that we've discussed a lot,
Yes,
and we
certainly.
saw differently about it. It was totally different and tense, you know.
Yes.
In Africa, we have weddings that we can even invite 500 people. And for us, weddings are a big thing, where families come, the family of each spouse will come, and we will have what we call uduli. We will sing and we do all the traditional things. So it's a big thing. So share with me how you do weddings, because I realize that for you guys, it's nothing. And for you, a spouse can just go, a couple can just go to the reverend, if you call it reverence, and just do it quietly and get done with it. So I'd like you to share your opinions about it, about the weddings.
In Norway, if you have hundreds of guests, then you are either royal, or you are a billionaire, and you have a lot of connections with people who need to be appeased, so to feel important. Most Norwegian weddings are rather small. They happen at the courthouse or a church, with a few invited, with a handful of guests, and then a reception afterwards. The reception can be in a hired. It can be, if you are a bit extravagant, you can have it in a tent or in a hired, or in a banquet hall that you hired. Otherwise, you can also have it at a restaurant, which is what my brother did when he got married, or most likely at home. That also works. But in any case, a wedding usually only requires you to invite a select few, your nearest family members and your nearest friends. And of course, because and also, of course, because Norway is a bit a liberal country in this regards, a lot of people do not actually get married; they just move in together.
Yes, but one more thing that I noticed was the fact that one, you guys don't mind, even if it's small, it's not a big deal. But for me, my worry in terms of the cultural differences would have been, it's worse if it is an interracial one. It would have attracted many people, because people want to see, people are interested, people want to see. So it would have attracted lots of people. And then let's proceed and talk about, there's something that you did when you visited my family. You remember, we are a singing family. You also joined and you sang, and my father was there. Everybody was there. My in-laws were there to welcome you. But one thing that was, I think that was common, was that you realized that we were praying. Then because you realized that we prayed, you said, in fact, you said you assume that people are talking to you during the time of prayer, and you would like to pray, and you pray it in your own language.
Yeah,
so what are your what are your views about that, about what was happening? Was it similar? Was it different? Did you see any cultural difference there?
I believe Africans are more concerned with getting things done properly, with praying, with saying grace before dinner, before meal, for instance. It's something we tend to forget, so ignore in a way, unless family the whole family is religious. And as for a group prayer, that's also quite unusually in general. While they do have them in church often if the reverend leads it, but even in religious congregations, unless it's a service, people do not usually pray in groups where I have been around.
Yes.
So, but
although I never.
I tried to.
Sorry, I think we have a connection problem. I'm sorry. Continue. I think we're starting to have a connection problem. Continue. I'm sorry.
This episode where I decided to perform the Lord's Prayer in Norwegian, it was an improvised gesture, because I felt there was some kind of distress or unease in the room, and I wanted to I try to think of something that might calm people down and make the so, and that's the reason why I decided to lead the prayer spontaneously.
Yeah, one more thing. I think I'm gonna cut this video because I don't want it to be too long, so that it doesn't come out correctly. So I will cut it. But I would like to ask you lastly. Oh, I wanted to say I went to church with you and your mother on Christmas Eve in Norway. Yes, I realized that even though it was mostly English, I've been to English churches because I was in a boarding school, by the way. So I've been to churches that are English, although it was mostly English and it was having many activities. It was not different to some of the South African churches, even though South Africa has many churches. Some churches are noisy, some they put drums. I think I saw drums in your church.
Yes.
Some are loud, so we've got that diversity in terms of religion, but I didn't feel like I was left out when I was there. I just wanted to mention that, I didn't feel like I was left out.
That's nice.
Yeah, but another cultural difference that I noticed, which I should note it in future, it was like when it's time for breakfast, in your side of the family or in Europe, you just go on with breakfast. So if I delayed because I didn't know, I'll find you halfway because it's time for breakfast. So everybody must start eating.
Well, yes, that's true. My parents do not always do it like that. They do it like that when they have guests, and on Sundays and on public holidays. And then and on occasions like that, then they set up for breakfast. But so when I visit them at home, and it's not a Sunday, and it's not a holiday, then I'm expected to just fix my own breakfast actually. So they do get so ever since the kids left home, they have been informal about these things, except when it's supposed to be a bit more fancy. And by fancy I mean if it's Sunday, it's fancy enough. But when I grew up, we always had breakfast at the same time every day. But that's something that I have been very relaxed about usually ever since we grew up and at home. Or when I'm there on Saturday, for instance, then I'm usually it doesn't really matter when I get up, because they know that I will always just find some toast in the drawer and some bread and some fruit there because I know where it is. So they just let me, and they have already eaten themselves. So they just let me take care of myself, cases like that. But but my mother was raised to distinguish between everyday situations and special occurrences. So she's a bit concerned about that. So that shows at meal times.
Yes. What did you think of the restaurants? Because we've been to too many restaurants. We've been to restaurants in East London. We've been to restaurants in Cape Town and various restaurants. What do you think? How different are they from the restaurants in Europe or in Norway?
They are actually quite similar to the restaurants I've been to in Europe. They do have the same kind of variety. They have burger chains, they have Chinese restaurants, they have those big fancy family restaurants. Really, that's not a very significant cultural difference. What was kind of exciting and fun was, of course, that I could eat some meat that they don't serve at home, like zebra or wildebeests.
Yeah, but I also know that I made you taste pap one day, which is made of mealie meal. It looks like mashed potato.
Yes.
We're in East London.
That's true.
I made you, yes, and you were also showing interest in food tasting, like kudu. You would taste kudu meat.
Yeah.
You would taste crocodile meat.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, so I think you were interested in tasting these different foods.
Yes, I like to do that when I travel abroad. I'd like to try something new. That's important.
Yes,
and I like
another cultural difference. In as much as between me and you, I don't pick up many cultural differences because I would like to think I'm westernized, even though I'm a rural girl. But there's one time where you shocked me. You shocked me. If I see a crocodile, I run for my life.
Yeah.
But you decided to swim with crocodiles and I was scared. So that was a little bit scary and different for me.
Yes, because to me it was just an adventure, something you have a unique opportunity to do when you travel so far from home. So it was about seizing the opportunity that might not come back. That's why I did it.
Yeah, I'm worried. I don't want us to spoil this video. If there are other issues that come up, we'll have part 2 when we have time. I would suggest that for this one, we close it because I'm worried about the connection because you are far and I'm far. So I would like us to close this video, and I would like to thank you for your time and for everything and for sharing with me some of the differences that you've picked up, which are not really differences, but for me, it's just things that we should share, and things maybe that people should be aware of, maybe when they are going interracial.
Yes, certainly.